The sound of boots scraping against sun-baked concrete cut through the hot afternoon as a crowd gathered in a tight circle, their shadows stretching long beneath the open sky. In the center lay a motionless body, fur dulled with dust, chest still, eyes half closed as if the world had already moved on without him. The vet had shaken her head, voice cracking as she declared it was over, that nothing more could be done. But just as people began to turn away, an officer dropped to his knees and did something no one expected, something that would stop time, challenge certainty, and change every heart watching. If you believe in kindness and second chances, take a moment right now to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel, Kind Vibes, because stories like this remind us why compassion still matters. The morning had started like any other in the small roadside town of Belmere, sunlight pouring generously over storefronts and quiet streets. Officer Rowan Hale had been assigned to traffic duty near the veterinary outreach clinic, a modest white building with peeling paint and a line of hopeful pet owners stretching into the parking lot. Rowan was known around town for being calm, steady, and unusually attentive for someone who wore a badge. He listened more than he spoke, noticed details others overlooked, and treated even the smallest call as if it mattered. That day, he had no idea that a routine shift would test everything he believed about duty, patience, and mercy. The call came just before noon. A passerby had reported a collapsed dog near the bus stop, unmoving in the heat. Rowan arrived within minutes, siren off, the air thick with summer warmth and the hum of cicadas. The dog was large, older, with a gray muzzle and ribs that told a story of long roads and missed meals. His name tag was worn smooth, the engraving nearly erased by time. People stood nearby, some filming, some whispering, others shaking their heads with quiet resignation. Rowan knelt down, placing 2 fingers gently against the dog's neck, feeling for something, anything, that might say this moment wasn't the end. The vet from the clinic, Drive, Maribel Quince, hurried over, her white coat fluttering in the breeze. She examined the dog quickly, professionally, with the practiced efficiency of someone who had seen too much loss to pretend otherwise. She checked the eyes, the gums, the chest. The heat had been unforgiving, and the dog had likely been lying there longer than anyone realized. She said the words no one wanted to hear, explaining that there was no pulse, no breathing, no response, and that sometimes even love arrives too late. The crowd began to murmur, some turning away, unwilling to watch another ending unfold in daylight. But Rowan didn't move. He stayed there on the pavement, the sun beating down on his shoulders, his uniform darkening with sweat. He remembered a training session years earlier, one that most officers had treated as an obligation rather than a gift. A visiting instructor had demonstrated a technique used in rare cases, a combination of airway clearing and rhythmic compression adapted for animals, something meant for moments when protocols said stop but instinct whispered try. Rowan had practiced it once, clumsily, and never thought he'd use it. Until now. He adjusted the dog's head carefully, clearing the mouth, aligning the neck just right. His movements were deliberate, almost reverent, as if he were handling something sacred. He placed his hands where he remembered, counting silently, focusing on rhythm rather than doubt. The vet watched, torn between frustration and awe, knowing the science but also recognizing the power of belief. The crowd quieted, phones lowering, breaths held, time seemed to stretch, the heat shimmering, the world narrowing to the steady motion of Rowan's hands. Minutes passed that felt like hours. Sweat dripped onto the pavement, mixing with dust and tears. Rowan's arms ached, his lungs burned, but he didn't stop. He thought about the dog's life, about the roads he'd walked, the hands that might have once scratched behind his ears. He thought about how easy it was to give up when someone else said it was over. And then, just when despair began to settle like a heavy blanket, something changed. It was subtle at first, a barely perceptible twitch beneath the fur. Then a shallow gasp, so faint it could have been imagined. Rowan froze for half a second, then continued, more focused than ever. Another gasp followed, stronger this time, the chest rising unevenly as if remembering how to breathe. A sound rippled through the crowd, a collective intake of air, disbelief turning into fragile hope. Doctor. Quince dropped to her knees, rechecking, eyes wide as she felt a pulse where none had been before. The dog's eyes fluttered open, cloudy but alive, meeting the bright blue sky above him. His tail moved weakly, stirring dust, as if greeting the world again. Someone cried out, another laughed through tears. Rowan leaned back on his heels, chest heaving, a stunned smile breaking across his face. He hadn't known if it would work. He had only known he couldn't walk away. The dog was rushed inside the clinic, placed on fluids, monitored closely. The vet worked with renewed urgency, her earlier certainty replaced by quiet respect. Tests showed severe dehydration, heat exhaustion, and a heart that had nearly given up but hadn't. Not yet. The name on the tag, once cleaned, read Bramble. No last name, no address, just a name that felt like it belonged to a survivor. As the afternoon wore on, word spread through Belmere. People who had been there retold the moment again and again, each version carrying the same wonder. Rowan returned to his post, quieter than usual, replaying the scene in his mind. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt humbled, reminded that sometimes the line between ending and beginning was thinner than anyone realized. Bramble recovered slowly over the next few days, basking in sunlight by the clinic window, accepting gentle pats from staff and visitors. His appetite returned, his eyes brightened, and his tail wagged with increasing confidence. A local teacher named Alara Finch stepped forward, saying she had seen him around her neighborhood for years and always felt he was watching over the street. She offered to foster him, then to adopt him outright, giving him a backyard filled with shade and a porch where he could nap in peace. Rowan visited once, standing awkwardly at the gate as Bramble trotted over, tail spinning like a propeller. There was recognition there, something unspoken but real. Rowan knelt again, this time without urgency, just gratitude, and scratched behind the ears that had heard so many sounds of the world. He left with a lighter step, carrying a reminder that his badge wasn't just about enforcement, but about presence. If this story is touching your heart, if it's reminding you that even when experts say it's over, compassion can still rewrite the ending, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and let us know you're here by subscribing to Kind Vibes. Your engagement helps stories like this reach more hearts. Belmere returned to its routines, but something subtle had shifted. People lingered longer at crosswalks, offered water to stray animals, checked on neighbors they hadn't spoken to in years. The story of the officer and the dog became a quiet legend, not because it defied science, but because it honored effort. Dr. Quince began teaching the technique to her staff, calling it a reminder rather than a miracle. Rowan continued his patrols, still listening, still noticing, still kneeling when others stood back. Just before we reach the end, we have one small request. Please comment a single word below that captures how this story made you feel, whether it's hope, kindness, or second chance.